Welcome back to the poker vlog. This is episode number 144, and for this one, we're back at Bellagio. I've been really enjoying playing there lately. We're doing a 5-10 session, and we get into some huge hands, one really big all-in, and there's plenty of bluffs and a lot more. I think you guys are gonna love it, but before we get started, I have one announcement to make. I'm teaming up with Junior Achievement of Southern Nevada, Phil Hellmuth, and Andrew Nemi. We're putting together an online charity poker event on WSOP.com. That'll be March 14th. Unfortunately, that'll only be for people that are inside Nevada, but we're also doing a live stream Q&A March 13th with Phil, Andrew, and myself. That should be a blast. I haven't really hung out with Phil too much since he was on the vlog like 3 years ago, and we got into that huge hand where he flopped top 2 and I folded aces to him. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about his success in the poker industry over the last several decades, and I'm really excited for it. So I'll have plenty more information on those two events in future videos. I just thought I would give it a mention right now, and that way you can plan ahead for it. All right, let's go ahead and get started. It's about 12:30 on the strip. We're starting our session a little late, but that's when games are good. After buying into the 5-10 here at Bellagio for $1,500, we take our seat at the first must move inside Legends Room. It's only the second time ever playing in this special enclosed area where some of the highest stakes games in the world regularly run. We're gonna try and play like those guys. It's pretty special to be in here. A few orbits pass, then we're dealt 9-7 suited in the cutoff. Player in middle position limps in. The hijack limps in as well. This player recently got stacked after getting it all in for 1100 with pocket 5s against pocket kings on a 10-4-3 rainbow board. Not sure how that happened. He rebought, and I want to play hands with him, especially in position. I call. The small blind isn't keeping it friendly. He raises to 70. The other two limpers call. I'm getting almost 4-1, closing the action in position. I call for 60 more. We're going 4 ways to the flop. The dealer puts out king 6-5 with 2 hearts. We flop a straight flush draw. The small blind may not like the situation that he's found himself in. He checks. The middle position player in the hijack check as well. I want to be taking a stab at it. I bet 170. I could reasonably have pocket 6s or 5s, king 6 or king 5 suited, and 6-5 suited. The small blind folds. He's the player that I was most concerned about. The middle position player lets his cards go. The action's on the wild man in the hijack. He doesn't want to give up just yet. He calls. There's no way he's going to be very strong after initially checking with only me behind him. We're heads up. The turn is the ace of spades. It probably didn't help the opponent. I've seen him play all kinds of random, unsuited, unconnected cards, so it's tough for me to know for sure. He checks. It's usually not a great idea to bluff guys like this, but my hand has so much potential even if I get called, and I just can't help myself. I bet 440. The opponent is tanking. Please don't jam on me, dude. He eventually folds. That's a fun hand right off the bat. We get a great flop and semi-bluff our way to victory. It's a big pod that comes towards us. We're immediately up several hundred. Later, I pick up queen jack suited in the big blind. Under the gun opens at 30. Small blind calls. I call for 20 more. We're going 3 ways to the flop. The dealer puts out queen 10 deuce with 2 spades. We've got top pair and a backdoor straight draw. The small blind checks. I check to the pre-flop aggressor. He bets 60. The small blind folds. I call, but I don't love the situation since my kicker isn't that strong and there are a lot of bad cards that could come on future streets. We're heads up. The turn is another deuce. I check. I wouldn't mind seeing a check back. I don't want this pot to get too large. The opponent bets 80. I don't beat many hands that he's betting for value. Folding top pair when I'm getting this price doesn't make any sense though. I call. The river is the 5 of clubs. I check. Under the gun bets 130. I'm getting almost 4-1 on a call, so despite believing that I'm probably not ahead once the player bets all 3 streets, I call knowing that it's still going to be a profitable play, even if I end up losing more than 75% of the time. As expected, we don't win here. The opponent shows pocket queens. He flopped top set and turned to boat. I show him that all the queens were in play. He doesn't look very happy to see that because I'm sure he would have bet more had he known that I had top pair. The profit is erased, and we get moved to another must move on the main floor. I pick up pocket jiggities under the gun. I raise to 30. The player on my left 3 bets to 90. This is a very strong move. He should almost never be bluffing in this spot. A lot of the time he's going to have me crushed. I call, very much hoping to drill a set. We're heads up. The flop comes 4-4 deuce with 2 hearts. Probably no lead change. I check. The opponent down bets to 50. I dial my accountant's number. He confirms that I can afford this amount. I call. The turn is the 5 of clubs. I check. This time under the gun +1 bets 200. What happened to 50, dude? I like that price a lot better. The only hand that I can beat that he play this way is some sort of ace-high flush draw. I might be drawing dead to 2 outs. Again, I'm in a tough spot. I call once more, hoping that I won't have to face a river bet. The dealer puts out the 9 of clubs, the backdoor flush gets there, I check, I glance at my opponent's playbook, and the page for checking back has been ripped out. He fires for 350. Once again, I don't beat anything that my opponent is betting for value. I can conceivably beat a missed heart draw, and that's it. Luckily, my accountant is still on the phone. He says that my hand is basically face up, and 350 is too much. Kind of agree with him, but this is the same guy who advised me to invest big in Beanie Babies several years ago, so I can't fully trust him. I do what I want, even though I know before the cards are even turned over that I'm not ahead.
Nice one. Chop it up.
The player has pocket jiggities as well. I'm relieved to split the pot. I thought it was way more likely that we were going to lose a sizable portion of my stack. Next we've got Queen Jack suited in the hijack. I raised to 30. The small blind wants to play for more. He 3-bets to 120. According to Upswing, this is what the small blind's range should look like when facing a raise from the hijack. You can see that he's mostly supposed to be 3-betting with a lot of hands that are stronger than mine, but I'm in position, closing the action, so when we go back to what my range should look like, we see Queen Jack suited as a pure call, which is interesting because we can actually fold some slightly better suited Broadway cards occasionally. Calling is what I do. We're heads up. The flop comes Queen 10-3 with 2 diamonds. We have top pair, a flush draw, and a backdoor straight draw. We absolutely smash it. Small blind down bets to 80. I consider 2 options. I could raise, but if I do that, I'm probably only getting folds from hands that are worse than mine, like ace-king. I'm pretty much flipping or a slight dog against overpairs, depending on whether or not those combos contain a diamond. I call because my hand has value and still a lot of potential. I'm happy to keep the pot relatively small until I improve. The turn is the 5 of spades, it's a brick. Now we see the small blind increase the pressure. He bets 300. It's interesting. 2 of the queens are accounted for, so there's only one possible combination of queens that the player's going to have. And if you remember the range that this player's supposed to be 3-betting, he shouldn't have pocket 10s or worse, or queen 10, meaning that it's extremely likely that I'm up against one pair at the absolute best. I don't know that the player would necessarily bet hands like aces, kings, or ace-queen. The way that he's played it so far feels a lot more like a semi-bluff of some sort, with either ace-king or a flush draw. I don't want to get it all in against hands that are better than mine, and I want to keep his semi-bluffs in since I could be holding a handful of his outs. I call. This has got to be scary for the small blind no matter what he has. The river is the 8 of diamonds. We make the 3rd nuts. The player looks back at his hand to check and see if he has the diamond. That's a great sign. If he has 2 diamonds, he should already know. Perhaps I really am up against aces, kings, or queens, and I can get paid. The pot is set up perfectly for me to get it all in. I have 800 left. The opponent has a bit more with a 1K chip and some change. He rips it in for me. Perhaps he has aces with the ace of diamonds and feels comfortable going for value. Maybe he has ace-king with the ace of diamonds and is jamming as a bluff. There's still a small chance that he has top set. He could potentially have a smaller flush or the nuts as well. I'm never going anywhere. I call. Then we get some heartbreaking news. The small blind has ace-king of diamonds. We get flush over flushed in a massive pot.
Oh, that's sick. Nice then. You have me covered?
He indeed has us covered. That one's painful. We get beaten for the maximum in a giant cooler. I'm not sure there's much I could have done differently. I'm surprised to find out that despite me having top pair and a lot of the opponent's outs, he was actually a decent favorite to win the hand on the flop. If I jammed on the turn for 800 more, he still would have been getting more than 2 to 1 on a call, meaning that he's getting good enough pot odds to profitably call it off, given the fact that he's winning 36% of the time. After rebuying for 1500 more, I'm dealt ace-4 offsuit in the big blind. The under the gun player straddled. The button didn't realize it and tries to raise to 30. Then he's told that 40 is the minimum. My hand is kind of garbage when playing out of position, but I call because I'm getting a nice price. The under the gun straddler calls for 20 more. We go 3 ways to the flop. It's jack 5 deuce all hearts. We have the nut flush draw, a gutter, and an overcard. I check. The under the gun player checks. The button tends to be aggressive. He bets 60. I have a key blocker and big potential. Put in the check raise to 200. Winning right now would be a great outcome. That's what happens. Both players fold. Not that large of a pot. It's just nice to get a semi-bluff through to help my mind recover from the cooler. Here we have king jack offsuit in the cutoff. Nice hand from this position. I raised to 30. The button calls. This sets up the perfect squeeze opportunity for a player in the blinds. I'm going to have a wide opening range, and the button is going to have a calling range with a lot of medium strength and weak holdings. Small blind 3-bets to 100. Calling or folding are both reasonable. It's a small sizing, so I lean more towards calling, but I don't want the button to also call, making it so I'd be playing out of position. I 4-bet to 350. The button shouldn't have much. The small blind may not have much either. I have okay card removal, so it's less likely that I'm up against kings, jacks, and ace-king. Without much hesitation, the button folds. I wasn't too concerned about him. 1 player to go. It's not that often that there are 4-bet bluffs in this game. I imagine that it should get through frequently. What's even more rare is a 5-bet bluff. The opponent jams it in my face for 1550 effective. What I don't have card removal for is pocket aces. I'd be shocked if the small blind has anything else. I fold, no cookie for me. In this one, I pick up pocket aces myself. About time we see a real hand of strength this session. I raise to 30 from under the gun. Under the gun +1 calls. The big blind calls, we go 3 ways to the flop. It's 9-8-6 with 2 clubs. It's a nightmare since our opponents are going to hit this hard once they flat my pre-flop raise. I don't even have the ace of clubs to fall back on. The situation gets worse. The big blind leads for 50. I already don't like it, but I'm not folding. I call. The player behind me folds. I'll feel much better. Under the gun +1 calls. We don't always get what we want. The turn is the 4 of spades. It shouldn't change anything. The big blind bets 160. There's really only one good river card for me, and I could actually already be drawing dead. Plus I have 2 opponents to beat. I still think I could be in the lead. I call. I'm skeptical though. Under the gun +1 gives me one more reason to get out of the hand. He raises to 540. I haven't been in one good spot today. It's all been an uphill battle. The big blind calls the 540, which makes me think that he likely has a draw and doesn't have anything too strong, or else he would have jammed. It doesn't matter too much. I'm done with this. I fold. The river is the king of diamonds. The big blind checks. I stop recording, but under the gun +1 bets 670. The big blind folds queen jack of clubs face up. The player on my left would later tell me that he had 7-5 suited and flopped the bottom end of the straight. We at least made the right laydown. I'm stuck 2400 when I make it to the main game and pick up ace-5 suited in the big blind. Under the gun +1 limps in. The hijack raises to 40. I call for 30 more. Under the gun +1 folds. We're heads up, out of position. The flop comes king 7-3 with 2 clubs. We've got the nut flush draw with 1 over and a backdoor straight draw. I check to the pre-flop raiser. He reaches for chips, then bets 60. I won't be getting flush over flush to this hand. I call. I just want a club, like the entire cast of Jersey Shore. We get the 8 of spades, no club. The situation is sad. I check. The hijack is being a bully. He bets 140. We have a lot of outs, including possibly an ace. I call. Come on, let us get there one time for DJ Pauly D. No club for him either. It's the ace of diamonds. We make top pair. Our hand has a lot of showdown value. I check. The hijack is considering whether or not he wants to bet. He would mostly be repping ace king or better. He wants to get a count. I make it so my chips are clearly visible. I don't feel great about calling a large bet. Ultimately, the opponent doesn't pull the trigger. He checks back. That's good news. I happily show our top pair. It's a winner. The fact that the hijack was considering betting the river and the way that he checked makes me believe that we were ahead the whole time. Maybe he had something like a smaller club or spade draw. For the first time today, we have the best hand at showdown. The pot is ours. I like the new direction that we're going in, and it's not over. We pick up pocket queens in the hijack. Under the gun +1 opens at 30. He's a good young pro, seems like a nice guy. We've got to get him though. I 3-bet to 100. Calling also would have been fine since the initial pre-flop raiser opened from early position. The button cold calls the 3-bet. This particular player is tight. He may have done this with ace king, ace queen suited, queens, jacks, or 10s. Under the gun +1 calls for 70 more. I can definitely rule out aces and kings from him, probably ace king as well. We go 3 ways to the flop. It's jack 7 deuce with 2 spades. We still have an overpair, but I probably wouldn't have 3-bet jacks or worse pre-flop. This means that my range is capped at 1 pair, which is exactly what I have. Under the gun +1 checks. I can't allow anyone to see a free card. I bet 200. If both players fold, that'd be totally fine with me. The button lets his hand go. Luckily, he didn't have jacks. Under the gun +1, it's a little stickier. If he jams, I'm gonna have to call it off, hoping that he has ace-jack suited or a flush draw. He calls. He seems strong and still might have done that with a set. The fight isn't over. The turn is the 9 of clubs. The opponent checks. I'm not sure I want to play for it all anymore. I check back. The river is the king of diamonds. I no longer beat flush draws containing a king, ace king, or king jack. Under the gun +1 checks. Doesn't make much sense to bet at this point. I check back. I'm delighted to see that the player doesn't have any of those hands that I previously mentioned. He flopped the world with 10-9 of spades. He had a straight flush draw, then turned second pair, but bricked the river. We win a nice sized pot. Not many chips, but they're mostly black, $100 ones. Those are acceptable. Just feels good to be back on the right track. Now we've got pocket 7s on the button. Folds to me. I raised to 30. Small blind calls. The big blind calls as well. He's our old pal, Set Genie. You've probably seen him in previous vlogs. Every time he's around and I have a pocket pair, I make a set. That's how he earned his nickname. He knows this, and he should know better than to get involved in hands with me. I even do the friendly thing and try to remind him of his powers so he can tread carefully.
All right, Set Genie.
We're going 3 ways to the flop. The dealer puts out queen 8-3 with 2 spades. I guess the Genie has no more magic in him. We all check. The turn is the 5 of hearts. We all check again. This hand is dumb. The river is the 7 of hearts. The set genie comes through when it's crunch time. How dare you ever doubt his abilities? What's even better is that the small blind bet's 40. Set genie calls the 40. I have a very hidden hand. I raised to 200. Neither player has much. They both fold. We get another win to close out the session.
Set genie.
Oh wow, that's really awesome.
You're the man. I don't miss when you're around.
Played for 4 hours and 40 minutes. I lost 1470. The big difference was just that one hand where I got flush over flushed. Things were not easy for me today. I had a lot of tough decisions, and it was a lot different than, you know, some of the previous vlogs lately where I've been running really well. Didn't run particularly great tonight, and I was kind of expecting a night like this, but I was down 2,400 at the low point. I feel really good about just losing 1470. I won a lot back at the end, and I feel a lot better about the session. Pretty exhausted. It's about 5:30 in the morning. Time to go to sleep and then wake up and work on a video. That's it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons because it helps out the channel quite a bit. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to let me know in the comment section, and I'm happy to get back to you. Also, be sure to hit the notification bell. That way you're notified every time I put out a new video. So we've lost the last 2 sessions here on the vlog, but we win big in some upcoming ones, so be on the lookout for those. I'm really excited to share those with you guys. And let's see here. Several of you guys have gotten your revenge mode or your revenge range t-shirts and tagged me on Twitter. I love seeing those, so keep that going. If you haven't gotten a t-shirt yet, I have a link down below in the description box. Be sure to pick one up. All right, guys. Hope you're staying safe. Good luck at the tables, and I'll see you next time.